Welcome back to the Profit Builder Unscripted. Today we're talking about how do you start to codify in writing what will make this a great year for you financially and strategically in your business. And in this session, I also give you a resource that will help you and prompt you to ask some questions that will help you create that plan for yourself. All right, let's jump in. I love this time of year because this is the time when I get to sit down with people and ask them about what do they want to create in this next year in their business. And part of that process is something that I shared a couple of podcast episodes ago about creating a vision for your business. But another part of it has to do with, hey, what do you want to get done in your business this year? What are the financial goals that you have in your business this year? And what does it look like in terms of investing in your team, your systems, your processes, what are your targets in terms of revenue, gross profit margin, net profit margin, cash reserves? And it's in the process of asking all of those questions, what I love about it is that it helps us start to formulate specific and measurable end results that we want to see in our businesses at the end of the year. It begins that process by just starting with some big goals that way. And, it's really not any different than when you begin a project, right? When you start a project, before you get into all the details of what it's going to take to finish, to build that project, what's it going to cost, how long is it going to take, before you figure all that out, you first are having a conversation with the client about what do they like, what do they not like, what do they want to have be different, what's their vision for how they want to live in their home and how they want to function or how they want to move around, or if it's a commercial space, it's like, what do they want to use it for, how do they want it to flow, what's important to them, right? So when you're doing a project, the very first part is sort of the visioning, right, what do I want it to look like? And then the second part is that you get a blueprint that speaks to, well, what will it look like when it's done? And that's the phase that I'm talking about doing for your business. Before you ever start with the end in mind, look back and go, all right, what's it going to cost? How much is it going to be? What are the subs? What are the labor? What's the materials? What's the specialty contractors? Before you figure out any of that, you first create a blueprint for what you want to create on a project. Well, this is the step that I want to talk to you about today for your business. And it's what I call a goal sheet, and having a goal sheet that starts to quantify things and ask a series of questions that are on things like, what's your revenue goal for this year? And almost everybody has a revenue goal, but then it starts to dig a little deeper. And I ask things like, all right, what's your revenue goal? But then what's your gross profit margin goal? What's the rate of return you want to have on projects? And then what do you want your net profit goal to be? And then what do you want your cash reserve goal to be? And then what do you want to make as a business owner? And then are you going to be adding staff? And so then I start to ask some other questions like that. Are you going to add staff? Is there training that you're going to do? Are you going to invest in equipment? What kind of support are you going to get? So it starts to formulate the blueprint that then will allow you to start to build a budget. But this is the first step. And so what I'm including down below is this template that I use that I send all of my clients, and I have them fill out before they ever do an operating budget, which I'm going to talk about in my next video. But for now, just to fill out the goal sheet that gets us thinking about what will it look like when it's a successful year for us financially? How will we know that, how do we quantify it? And here's the thing that's so important about writing down what we want and putting it on paper is that I say if it's not on a piece of paper, it's just a good idea and it sort of rattles around in our head. But the more we can quantify and put in writing what it is that we want to create, it starts the whole process of even filling out the sheet. I always say it's not necessarily the data on the sheet is not as important Well, it's important, but what's the important is the process. It made you stop and think, right? It made you stop and ask those questions about what do I want to create? Well, we'll make it a successful year. Or am I going to hire somebody? Like it rather than all these sort of good ideas rattling around in my head, it kind of codifies it and puts it in writing and gives you the opportunity to start to really formulate for yourself what will make it a really great year for me. So I'm including down below a link to get the goal sheet for yourself. And I encourage you to come back and make sure to listen to my next recording because I am going to talk about creating an operating budget for your company and why is that important. And I'm going to tell you, it's no different than creating a budget for a project, right? Why is that important to do? Because it assures you that you're going to make a good profit. It assures you that you have an idea of what you need to plan for, who you need to hire, what subs you need to hire, what materials you need to purchase, right? The same thing is true in doing an operating budget for your business. So I hold this whole process of kind of doing planning financially in your business is not just an exercise of getting numbers on a piece of paper, but it's an exercise of being able to set up goals for yourself and have you sit down and kind of think through things like just like you do when you do a project budget, right? That it has you really give thought to what's it going to take to do it, what will make it successful for me. And what's interesting is I find time and again is that people who invest in their businesses in this way and who spend the time doing these things have a much greater likelihood of actually reaching their goals than ones who do not put it in writing. But again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next session. But in the meantime, I encourage you go ahead and click on the link below, grab that goal sheet for yourself, and start planning your year for what do you want to create? What do you want it to look like? What will make this a great year financially and strategically for you? All right. Thank you again for being part of this community, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Profit Builder Unscripted.